How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Escape from New York. This is from 1981 and was directed by John Carpenter. This movie stars Kurt Russell, Lee Van Cleef. We also have Donald Pleasence as the president, who was, of course, Sam Loomis in John Carpenter's Halloween. Cool to see him back. We also have Adrienne Barbeau, who worked with John Carpenter before on The Fog. And we, of course, have to mention Tom Atkins, who, of course, is going to play a cop in this. But he was in several cult classics, including the John Carpenter-produced Halloween 3. So, a really cool cast, and I really do love everybody in here. But anyway, this is known as one of John Carpenter's best movies and also one of the best action movies of all time. And yeah, it really is. This is just a super cool movie with a ton of atmosphere, a great charismatic lead, and a really fun movie to watch and rewatch over and over again. I mean, I have the 2-disc DVD, and I was so excited when I found the 2-disc Blu-ray Steelbook. I snatched that thing up really quick. But yeah, lots of really cool, really fun stuff, and this is the kind of movie that makes you say, boy, they don't make them like they used to. And this is, yeah, an action all-time classic. Kurt Russell, he had worked with John Carpenter before on a made-for-TV Elvis biopic, and he was at the time known as more of a comedy actor, and the studio wasn't sure about him, and they had to really fight. You know, John Carpenter really had to fight to get Kurt Russell on this, and his portrayal of Snake Plissken is super cool. The iconic eye patch and tank top, and the way he kind of just wants to be left alone more than anything. He was so cool that this is the movie that got him into being an action star. And then you have just the way it deals with the plot. Escape from New York, a very over-the-top movie. All of New York is a prison, and not just anybody, but the president is stuck in there, and you have to send in Snake. It shows, like, big, cool, extreme stuff, but it doesn't just wink and nod like, oh, aren't we being cheesy like you would nowadays, and it doesn't just go, here's some fun pieces and set them there. It takes a moment to explain, like, how the prison colony of New York would work, and to get to see all the atmosphere and the grunge and the cool sets and all the different people that live there. It really is something to take in. It is super well thought out, and yeah, no, it's really great. And I also love that, you know, it has underlying themes, but they don't take away from it, and they know when to not overplay their hand. At the end of the day, the movie is about Snake Plissken going to get the president and getting to see the cool character in the cool world. There are things like humorous moments, or like metaphors for the political landscape, especially of the 1970s. And there are some subplots, but they never get pushed too far. They're never distracting, and at the end of the day, John Carpenter, I mean, look at Halloween. He knows how to keep it clean and simple, and it focuses on the absolute essence of the story, and just knocks it out of the park. Escape from New York is great. What can you say? Snake's awesome, New York is grungy, dripping with atmosphere and really cool, fun action sequences. If somehow you missed it, go check it out, but this is one of Carpenter's top 5 for a reason, and yeah, definitely recommend it. Anyway, I want to go in and do a bit of a deeper analysis. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to dig in a little deeper and talk about some of the cool stuff. So anyway, no major spoilers, but let's talk about the plot. We actually open up with a bit of history. The movie itself came out in 1981, but they talk about in 1988, crime is up 400%, and they turn New York into a prison. The rules are simple. Once you go in, you don't go out. Classic. And they talk about, the big wall around it and the army surrounding New York City. It's a cool bit of setup, and then they say that was 88 and now we're in 97. So the movie didn't give itself too many years until this future would get here. Only 7 years from the movie does the timeline deviate. And normally this is one of those tropes that, people kind of, make fun of, like Blade Runner being set in 2019, instead of 2119. I don't know why Ridley Scott did it, but as far as Escape from New York, I totally understand. I view this less as the incorrect future trope and more as an alternate timeline, because, this was 81. We were just coming off of the 1970s, and the 1970s was super grungy, and there was this whole atmosphere of crime and distrust in the government. It wasn't so much getting the future wrong as taking our current trajectory and talking about where it could go and how, it was basically just explaining the feelings of the time in this movie. So, yeah, I wouldn't say incorrect future, more alternate timeline to get the point across. And if they did make more Escape from New York stuff, like a remake or a sequel, which would be better, I would say keep the timeline. Don't change it. Keep it where it is. That's part of the point. But anyway, the president's plane will get taken over, and the plan of these hostiles is to actually crash it into a building to make a point. Which, a building in New York, we're getting a little uncomfortable. But they send Donald Pleasence in this big red egg, which I do like how it's kind of goofy but still realistic, that they put the president in a big red egg and shoot him out of the plane. That's funny. But I also want to say, I like how Donald Pleasence plays the president. It shows he's a elitist jerk, but doesn't over-explain it. I mean, if this movie was made nowadays, I think we can all say what they would do with this character. But there are some parallels between him and, say, Nixon, but they're not overplayed, they're not over-spelled out, they're not spoon-fed to us, but just little things like him getting in his pod and not feeling sad for all these people that get left behind, and the way that all the other people don't even question it. They're just like, bye-bye, Mr. President. It just, in this cold and stoic way, has the metaphor. But yeah, I do like how they don't overplay the president's role as a jerk, and I do love Donald Pleasence's performance. But anyway, how are they going to get the president out? Luckily for them, they just caught former war hero turned criminal Snake Plissken, and he really doesn't want to go in there. And I do like his main motivation is he's tired of fighting and he just wants to be left alone. That's really cool. Some actors would have played this too far and made him annoying, but you can see just Kurt Russell just there fuming like, I don't want to be here. And it does add, kind of like this humorous undertone in some ways. But I like that his motivation is he just wants to be done with this whole thing. They eventually tell him, like, okay, we'll leave you alone. You just do this one thing. But they put little bombs in his neck, which I don't know if that was the first use of this trope, but it definitely popularized it. And I like the idea that, Snake might just buzz off into New York and live his life there rather than do his job. And also, that timer that this adds, he has 22 hours and he's constantly checking his watch. That does build up the tension. And I love when you first get to New York. It's grungy, but the people you see are at first in the shadows, and you don't know who's down there or who you can trust. And you really have this unnerving tone when you first go into New York that they kind of turn on its head with this one aspect to Snake's character that it totally comes out of left field but really does work. Snake was a former war hero that turned against the government. he is actually famous and popular, so he'll go in there and you think, who's gonna come after me? And people definitely will come after you, but a large portion of the public will go, you're Snake Plissken. I thought you were dead. And they'll say, hey, Snake, don't go over there. Hey, Snake, let me help you. I kind of love grumpy Kurt Russell and all these dangerous-seeming people just absolutely loving him. It is a really interesting vibe, and I really do love this aspect of the movie. It's super unique, and you don't even see it done too much nowadays, but that is really fun. But he'll eventually meet some other characters, like this cabbie that says he's been driving the cab in New York for 40 years, and he'll casually throw a Molotov cocktail out of his sunroof to escape the bad guys. And you're like, wait a minute, 40 years, so did you just stay when they put up the wall? What happened there? And then, like, you know, he'll meet Brain, who he has some history with, and that will lead us to Adrienne Barbeau. And we get to meet a good amount of characters, and they are interesting, and they give Snake some people to bounce off of. And of course, obviously, the president, he's not going to be super easy to find. The tracker doesn't work, which, by the way, yeah, the tracker, I love seeing all this old retro futurist tech, you know. Here's an advanced thing for the 80s, you know, and it's a big tracker that's like the size of a Walkman. But he's not there, and he has to piece the mystery together. He has to run around New York and figure out where he went, and eventually we will meet the Duke, who's controlling New York, and he's a very tough, antagonistic force to go against. And the idea that, you know, if you just left people in a prison together with no guards, you would have a self-emerging form of government. There is a really good amount of world building in this movie. You know, who are the people? Oh, maybe the people underground, maybe they're all the crazy ones. And here's the Duke's car. Instead of headlights, they're chandeliers. That's absolutely cool and iconic. And even, like, how do they get gas and power? Explored where the world's well developed without overplaying its hand, but New York is so very much alive and rich in this movie. And yeah, it wasn't just generic post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's thought out and interesting and just visually so grungy. But yeah, what else can you say about this movie? Snake Plissken is absolutely cool. New York is absolutely grungy. And the action sequences work and are engaging. Sometimes there are quick fights. Snake dispatches with some people quite quickly. Other times they're a big elaborate scene and there are some missions to go through. Overall, Escape from New York really works. What else can I say? This is a fun movie. If you're a John Carpenter fan, if you're an action fan at all and you haven't seen it, it definitely still holds up. It's definitely a must-watch. You go check it out. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my John Carpenter playlist where you can see me talk about things like I reviewed Halloween. I also covered the first volume of the Escape from New York comic book. If you want to see more, you should find those there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.